Welcome back to the Face Off Factory podcast. Inside the factory, we got Casey Dowd, one of the very first coaches to join back in 2015 when we started. Casey played at Siena. He's coached, for the past 10 years in college and with us at Face Off Factory. He's one of my good friends. I'm pumped to have him on today. Casey, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, man. Excited to be on here finally. It's always good to catch up, especially in season when things are chaotic. So it should be fun.
Yeah, Casey's in the midst of his college season right now, so we appreciate him taking some time and jumping on with us. I think it's going to be an awesome segment for you guys. I'm really excited to dive in to his background, what he's been up to lately, and where things are at. All right, so background. Casey, we'll just kickstart. Kind of where are you from? How'd you get involved in Face Off Factory, and maybe give us a little story about what led to you being one of the first coaches we've had? I know you said finally getting you on here. We're having you on third. I think that's big time. There's a lot of other guys who are going to give me some flack about it, but yeah.
So I jumped on with Face Off Factory. So it's funny is, during MLL, I was a practice guy for 2 or 3 years and was like working my way up trying to get a spot, and it was actually my 23rd birthday, and that was my first game, and it was against the Boston Cannons, and Joe ended up being against the face-off guy for the Cannons, and we had an awesome battle. I think it was a 12 or 13 game. It was a 1-goal or 2-goal game, and we were just smashing heads the entire night. And it was really the first time I met Joe in person, and later that night we shook hands and said awesome time, and Joe was like, "Hey, do you want to start this with us? You want to help us coach and get involved in lacrosse facing off?" So I jumped on that immediately, and we became great friends. Joe was, at my wedding this past summer, so we've been awesome and super close. But that's kind of how I started in the professional lacrosse, and right from there, out of school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do in terms of jobs. So I jumped on and became a volunteer assistant at Mercier University, which is Division II. Did that for a season, spent the fall coaching club at UConn, and then I spent 8 years at Colby College, Division III school in Maine, before coming to Princeton University, where I'm at now. So kind of been all over the map, every level. We joke around inside the Face-Off Factory. I'm the journeyman. I've been on every MLL team, a million, small startup teams, and had some time in the PLL for a training camp. So been around the block in the professional lacrosse a little bit, but really excited that I got to join up with Face-Off Factory early on and have seen so many guys develop.
Yeah, 2 things. One, do you remember where we had that first conversation?
It was in a basement of a spot. I do not remember the name of the place it was, but I do remember where it was. It was in Boston.
For all our MLL friends and any Boston guys listening, it was at West End Johnny's in the basement. That was a famous Cannon spot. I had heard back when the Boston Blazers days, they used to do pregame lunch there before they'd play, and then they'd go out there after, and the guy would have the setup for them. But yeah, that was kind of a famous Cannon spot. And then second, we always ask at camp, the trivia question, what are all the teams you played for? For anybody who's coming to camp this summer, why don't we give them the answers and we'll see if it sticks.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. So there's a couple, there's 1 or 2 sneaky ones. So right away I was with the Rochester Rattlers, who I was drafted by, picked up by, the Boston Cannons, the Dallas Rattlers, the Florida Launch, and then I finished with the Denver Outlaws in the bubble, and then I was picked up by the Water Dogs Lacrosse Club for training camp for a year. So definitely made my rounds.
Yeah, and he says Boston Cannons. Casey and I think played 2 games where we were splitting reps on the Cannons my second season. We weren't having the best year. It was one of my weaker years face-off wise. They brought in Casey to help me get my mind right and to bring in some reinforcement at the X. So
well, dude, you know what year that was?
Cool experience. What year?
That was we played against each other 1 week off, and then immediately you and me were teammates. So it was literally, it went from us playing against each other, not knowing each other, you telling me in West End Johnny's, let's do Face Off Factory. I jumped on, and then we were teammates for the summer.
Yeah, pretty funny turnaround in just a span of 3 weeks. And then, playing with all those different guys and on all those different teams, like what piece of advice could you give someone like maybe who's going to be in the transfer portal, joining a new team, doing a grad year, maybe a young pro who's gotten traded? What advice from somebody who's kind of been around the block a few times would you say stepping into a new locker room is really important?
Yeah, I think going in with, no ego of who you are, both positive and negative, is, playing pro lacrosse or college lacrosse is there's a super small number of people that are doing it. So it's way less about, you hyping yourself up, but it's going in being really confident in who you are. And then also too is like doing whatever the team needs, right? Both of us have been on rosters that we were the best players, whether it's high school, college, pro, you're the best player, and you've stepped on rosters that you were the worst player. Like when you started playing box, right? You didn't know how to play defense, but you had to learn that, and you had to, it was the downside is you had to like kind of develop, but you did anything. You don't care who you were, what your stats were in outdoor or college. You just kind of say, hey, I'm going to learn as much as I can, take something from every single person that you play against, play with, and then add it to your game, and you're going to become a much better player at any level. So that's the biggest thing, is just always being a sponge. Take something, criticism, hard criticism, things you want to hear, things you don't, and then just apply it to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that could be applicable for like youth players stepping on a club team for the first time, or like, being a sophomore getting called up for a varsity game for the first time. Like anytime you go to a new locker room, like Casey and I talk about it from the pro perspective more or less, or, joining a new college team. But I think like at the pro level, when you do get like moved around, there's a little bit more ego involved because you feel like, somebody doesn't want you. But on the other side of it, somebody does, and you're in that room for a reason. So like, as you said, you got to come in there, no ego. You got to be open to doing anything the team needs. And that usually leads to a lot of success. And just that's something like I've been lucky, in the MLL. I only was moved around once, traded to Atlanta, and I was like bummed out about it the first day. But when I got down there, it was like a whole new spin on the game for me, and brought a lot of excitement. But in the PLL and NLL, I've been on the same team for the entire time.
Yeah. It's also too is like in high school or college is, a college coach's job is to always be getting better, right? Bringing in better talent or a piece that is 1% better than you. So it's not so much going in and being, I'm going to take this guy's job, I'm going to, do this. It's like, hey, I'm here to get you better so that we can get better. And being that kind of like, it's way more selfless of being a really good teammate first before coming in and thinking you're going to be the man.
No doubt. Well said. Favorite events and best stories from your long career working Face-Off Factory?
I mean, Towson has become our kind of like staple. I feel like I think it's one of the coolest things is seeing how even the coaches, like we bring young coaches there. That's kind of like their first like roundabout at it, just because we bring all the best coaches from our group. We say, hey, this is how we do Face-Off Factory. We introduce how we teach different language, different things, different ways we do things. And then we get to work with guys from all over the place. I think the best part of it is, during the summer when you're playing a ton, you're coaching development days and all over the place. Like it's an awesome time to just hang out with everyone. There's no recruiting stress. There's no one's taking business calls and things like that. We get like 4 immersive days of just hanging out with the kids, doing fun stuff, hanging out with the coaches, which is always fun. That's like the best camp by far. And I feel like summer camp and things like that, it kind of dip down is not the cool thing. And I think one of the best things is that we make it we have a blast in the dorms. We have a blast in the dining hall. We do everything possible to have as much fun all over the place, all the time. So that's definitely my favorite camp, my highlight of my summer with us. Stories, I think, are really just more so it's year to year, just in terms of what we bring, but just like seeing the young guys, I think, again, being like, we have a group of the older coaches, between me, Nards, Barb, and Chris May and stuff of like the old heads. Seeing the old heads, like we've been around forever. So now seeing that some of the kids that we coached are now coaches with us and counselors, and like being like, oh my gosh, I remember when you were a bobblehead, being a fool, eating too much ice cream in the dorms, and then like puking on the field. Like all those things are super fun. And then also getting to meet the newer coaches that are like kind of up and coming, or guys that are crushing in the college, that are going to become the next pros. I think one of the coolest parts is I haven't played pro in a while, but all those dudes between our group chat, we're firing off messages, talking to each other back and forth. So no like specific story other than picking on Derek and Keegan beating up TD a good amount. But those are definitely the highlights of the summer by far.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's like year in and year out, there's always like the funny stuff recapping week to week. And you never know what you're going to get when you come to camp. Like it's a cool way to kind of see how the next couple of days transpire. And you kind of said it. Is there any other events you're pumped about on the docket this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think just with the Towson event, that's kind of where I feel like a lot of stuff started with Face Off in terms of like the overnight stuff.
Yeah.
But the altitude camp is just something new, and it's something that when we brought it out last year, it was, I was a part of it right from the get-go, which was really fun. And that was really where we got to really get into deep with the parent track. And it was kind of our second big run of it where you're out in Colorado College. It's awesome. We're in a place that we don't have a huge footprint in all the time. We're not always out west, so we're at least in Colorado, so it was just an awesome place to bring a ton of new kids there. We had kids from out east coming, down south coming to the event, and then the fact that we just get to have other positions there was really cool. Getting to hang with Jeremy Noble, and we had Jared Newman and stuff there as well, which was really fun. All the different position coaches just kind of getting guys better throughout, which was like Chase Erlin too. So it was really, really fun.
Yeah, and that's something we're going to continue to do more of, so stay tuned. Suggestion, you mentioned the parent track. Suggestion for, our Face-Off Factory parents, hopefully some of them are listening and trying to pick stuff up. Looking like just for some low-hanging fruit, help on how to guide their kids to get to the next level. A lot of, the students we work with, they're new to lacrosse, the parents are at least, or, it's their first kid going to college. What's like some of the easy check boxes that these people can hit to put themselves in a better position?
Yeah, one easy one right away, which is always hard, is just educate yourself, right? Educate yourself without over implementing yourself. I don't have any kids yet, so it's always hard to be like, hey, like don't do this and get involved in this. But at the end of the day, this is their process. This is their future that they're setting themselves up for. So of course, be as involved in terms of understanding what colleges are looking for, what opportunities are open, how to best set yourself up, but don't take over the process. We always joke around in coaching, when people send their emails, and it's like, hi, my name is XYZ. I go to XYZ. It's like, okay, mom and dad wrote this email. Are you really interested in this, or is this just mom and dad running the process? So one is educate yourself. And then the other part too is make sure that as you're going through, that you understand the position, you understand the differences between Division I through club, the opportunities that either present themselves to you or that you're pursuing, just so that you're not chasing something that maybe is unrealistic or a very big stretch versus opportunities right in front of you that you should definitely take advantage of.
Yeah, what are some like definitely don't do's?
Definitely don't do's or write it. I mean, I already kind of hinted at it, but don't write your kids' emails. That's like the easiest way. Everyone wants to get their information out. There's about 3% of people that send no emails, about 90% of people that send too many emails, and 7% of people that send the right amount of emails. You want to update coaches, maybe once a semester. We don't need to hear from you all the time. But it's also too, is you have to understand and listen to kind of like answer as the coaches answer. Understand the recruiting rules of the fact that if you write to a college coach a million times they don't answer, it might just be they're not allowed to answer. So know what the rules are and the boundaries are so that you can set yourself up for success and that you're not wasting your time.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And I try to tell the kids this all the time. Like every single kid is emailing and most of them are doing it too much. Like it just becomes spam. It's not an effective way of like marketing yourself. I think the schools that are looking to be the best will find you, right? Yeah. Like they're, I see your calendar, like you guys are all over the place in the summer. All the teams you're competing with and playing against, most of them are doing exactly the same thing. Exactly. If you're good enough, coaches are going to find you. They're going to reach out. They're going to know how to get in contact with you. Make sure you have that digital profile like on IMLCA and having a YouTube video and making sure all your test scores and stuff are super easily accessible. So if you do get asked, you can send things back in a timely manner. But like outside of that, there's no sense to go like crazy and like reaching for things that aren't there, like schools will find you. And like lacrosse is also a small community. We're not playing soccer and like trying to, build our team to win the World Cup or like the Champions League where they're looking for players all over the world. Like it ain't like that.
No, and two is, kind of to your point of like the IMLCA page and all these is at the end of the day, the easiest thing that you can do is have a relationship with one of us Face-Off Factory coaches. Dude, between you, TD, Barb, any of these guys is when I don't know. I had a call with TD this week about helping us out in terms of like technique stuff. But when the summer comes and it's, I'm all over the road, is using a Face-Off Factory coach is one of the most efficient tools to understand where you kind of stand, but also to what level that you should be attacking from. We have guys committing from our groups all the time, and they're not committing to places they don't deserve to. It's where they perfectly fit. And I think having a relationship with a Face-Off Factory coach where you can have an honest conversation of, hey, this place is perfect for you. This place, maybe they might have interest, but like pursue some opportunities. I think that is one of the biggest things that anyone can really do is just have a relationship that's meaningful, not just transactional.
100%. And yeah, that's why TD and I talked about it. We love the camps. Like they can get in front of all of us and we really get to know them and can like speak about their character actually. Like that's obviously huge, but just seeing like, 10 to 15 of us on the field, imagine like where that network spreads and how many coaches you can actually touch just by getting in front of us for those couple days or something like that. But yeah, great advice. Personal side of things. Tell us like just where you're from, your background, how long you've been playing lacrosse, and why you fell in love with it.
Yeah, so I'm from Madison, Connecticut, little town in between Hartford and New Haven, right on the water. I went to Daniel Hand High School, public school in Madison. Went to Siena College for 4 years before playing with the Rats and all these guys and playing pro. But that's kind of my starting of where I started. I started lacrosse relatively late. I was a baseball player forever, unfortunately, until like 8th grade. I did both. And then I had to make a decision what I wanted to focus on most in high school, and lacrosse just kind of won. But a small fun fact, I guess, that was kind of, I don't even know if you know this too, but when the MLL started, one of the original teams was the Bridgeport Barrage, which was in Connecticut. And my dad was working. He was a general manager of the baseball team where they played, the Bridgeport Barrage played. They would destroy a baseball mound, put in sod, cover the infield up with grass, and they played all the original MLL games on these minor league baseball fields. And my dad was one of the original general managers of the Barrage. So my intro to lacrosse was, my first stick was from Casey Powell. Like I got to hang out in the locker room with all these old pros that were like, when the league was first starting. So it was like kind of like full circle when I finally got picked up and got to play, because it was like something that my dad was involved in. I got to be involved in. So it was really, really neat. But that's kind of like a interesting fun fact that like most people don't know, just kind of how I started, which was pretty neat.
Yeah, that is sweet. And back then, like a lot of the talent pool was, pretty vast, but there wasn't a lot of teams. So like all the teams in those early days of the MLL, I remember watching games on YouTube and such, like those teams were stacked.
Oh my gosh, it was insane. And like they would play in all these cool stadiums and stuff, and they had like a real cool following and everything. It's very similar to what pro lacrosse is now, now having home bases and stuff, which is really neat too.
Yeah, agreed. Other than the Barrage fun fact, what else do the fans got to know about Coach Dowd?
I guess during COVID, I became like an avid, I like love jumping in the water and surfing. So I was in Maine for the past 8 years. So like everyone would joke around. They were like, I was crazy, but we'd jump in the water and go surf. That's like one of my biggest hobbies that I absolutely love, getting outside in the woods and everything, which is super fun. My wife's also a coach. So during the season, we're pretty busy. But once the summer comes, nothing better than turning your phone off and going onto a mountain and not talking to anyone. So that's where you'll find me if I'm not on the lacrosse fields.
I love it. And then best leadership book, movie, what's something that we can get people inspired with?
Yeah. So my My absolute favorite one, and Coach Van Arsdale, who was my head coach when I was coaching at Colby, was a huge John Gordon fan. And he, when he was down at JU, he knew him pretty well. But The Shark and the Goldfish is my favorite book, and it is super short, it's super efficient, but it really relates to facing off really well. It talks, it's really about how you can't really wait for anything to happen. You have to go out and go make it happen yourself. Talks about ebbs and flows and staying kind of like net neutral. And it's just like an easy reminders, just of how, when people talk about things happen, or, you can't control officials, you can't control the weather, all these things, is the only thing that you can control is your outcome and how you're going to react, and how you're going to deliver. And I think that's something that everyone just in life can really appreciate, but especially in a position where your worth is determined by a W or an L column. It's something that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've been working on a lot of my guys with, like as we've gotten into the season and some of them are trying to sharpen their mindset, is like digesting more stuff like this rather than just the media on their phones. And obviously, like I tell them to watch a lot of film, but I think if you can really hone in on a few short reads like this, it can play a pivotal role in you having a better mindset and just being more confident, better person, better player. And I think everything's always connected. So that the more you can spend time sharpening your mind, the better you're going to be on the field.
Of course. I agree 100%.
Development. What is Coach Dowd's favorite or most effective drill right now?
Yeah. So
you don't have to give any of the Princeton trade secrets.
Oh, no, I was going to say is the Princeton guys listening to this are going to be dying, because every Friday we start out with a ground ball ladder, which is just the easiest ground ball drill. It's just like, up the sides, 2 hands, 1 hand. We tripod, we put all of our weight down, and it's more so just kind of like a reminder that, facing off is literally there's 2 stats, W and L and GB. So it's way more of just getting 40 ground balls before we start working out, and kind of hit that reset button of like, all right, we're playing a game. But that's kind of a ground ball drill that we do. We focus. It's really funny. The day that we posted the 3 different clamp variations, that might be my favorite drill. We go through and we practice all 3 clamp variations of just like kind of like power clamp, backhand forward, right? The like top rail clamps, and then like lockups. And I think those 3 is when you talk about like making changes, doing all these different things, micro adjustments, like going in and, TD talked about it a few weeks ago, is like when you go in and people complain about, oh, well, I'm ineffective, so I'm going to move my foot 3 inches back and make all these changes that are drastic. You don't have enough data to support your thesis, right? It's like a paper. So making micro adjustments of, hey, I'm just going to like use my top rail and top rail clamp this one and pull the ball out. I think those are huge and super, super important at any level, but especially college.
Yeah, so Casey's telling you to check out our most recent Workout Wednesday video that I filmed last week. Obviously, it's kind of a simplified version of what he's talking about. I try to get those drills out in like a minute and a half. But if you have a little more time, and like Casey and I used to take reps a lot when we were training, we'd meet in Connecticut with our boy Max Adler, and like that's something we would always be conversing about when we're there at the field for an hour or 2 banging heads a couple times a weekend, is like what those micro adjustments are. And then we would like literally sample how they would impact the face off if Casey's doing this and I'm doing that. So we would get a really good understanding of like, all right, if I'm able to identify my opponent is clamping the ball this way, I can beat him by clamping the ball that way. Okay. So if you guys do practice, like a lot of times the answers lie just in your training. And if you sample those ways to go about attacking the ball, right, and you're able to identify what your opponent is doing, it should be a pretty simple fix, after a couple of face-offs. Granted, he's not smoking you on the whistle.
Yeah. And I mean, with that is if people are smoking on the whistle, like one thing that, is like really popular is all the constraint-based learning, right? And like facing off is the most constraint-based learning, because the action and what you're trying to do is exactly the same every time. You're trying to set yourself up to be exactly the same every single rep. So one thing that we do a lot is we do like advantage, disadvantage. We say, hey, you guys are gonna face off live, but you can only exit out the front left, right? Yeah. So you have to pinch and pop out the front. So if you lose the clamp, get up. We call them like lotto losses. Punch the dude's chest, square him up, make it a ground ball. Like find other ways to be effective when you're not effective. So that's something that, just changing the constraint of where you can exit, throating the ball versus we'll set up PLL or we'll go NLL versus normal. Like find ways to make it so you always have a disadvantage. We talk about it with our guys is if you finish your career at 50%, you're a pretty solid faceoff guy. 4 years of being 50%, that's pretty good. We set up our practice so that most of our guys as they're training, that you will not finish practice. If you have to learn how to lose to be really good at winning. So if you finish practice at 40%, like you're at such a disadvantage in all the drills, you get to the game, you're like, oh my God, this is butter. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, if there's a secret, that's the big secret that I think that we use is set yourself, learn to lose. You got to be a great loser before you become a great winner.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, we have Natick tonight. That's usually like, my highest competition level night in Massachusetts of the 4 weekly sessions we run. And there's kids who come, like whether they're inexperienced or having an off day or didn't sleep the best, and I'll catch them like hanging their head a little bit. I'm always popping around asking kids how they're doing. And like when, the response is not positive or not like super pumped, like I know that they're in the right place and this is going to be really good for them, but I try to keep it into perspective. Like, dude, you are coming here so that you can also get better at losing and finding ways to win. And on those days where you don't have your best game or things don't go your way, like the best guys are able to adjust, they're able to scrap, and they're able to find ways to win when they're not at their best.
Yeah. You're going to run into someone that's better than you. There's always someone out there that's better than you. It's just how you can make those micro adjustments and not let, like TD said, don't let the whistle beat you. Don't let the whistle beat you before you face off against the guy. Figure out how you can be most effective against the kid that you're playing against. And then just applying that to your game and being okay with, if it doesn't work, not changing everything because it didn't work.
That's right. What are some important things you would tell kids like they can do on their own, in their house while they're practicing in the backyard? Like, what would you say from a college coach perspective as like a young face-off guy? What are things they should be doing on their own?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy one, the lowest hanging fruit always is don't pigeon yourself so early. Everyone talks about the face-off athlete. It's like, be a lacrosse player that also faces off, especially when you're young. And as you start focusing on the face-off after you come to camps and things like that, is you can't shoot until you're comfortable with your hands. You can't play goalie until you know where you set yourself up in the net. I think it all starts with your feet. And I always break it down of like your head, your body, and then your leg, your lower half is set your feet up, set your body up, set your head up. And then from there is work on your hands, is break everything down into small micro pieces so that you're not just throwing, this is where your left foot goes and your right foot and your hands and, everything at once. We face off on our knees. Every Monday we start facing off on our knees because we focus on our hands. Then we do it with our eyes closed so that we have muscle memory every single time. Then we stand up and we put the whole piece together. Like small thing. You don't need to take a single face off to get better at having a great stance or to set yourself up great or having great posture in your stance, right? Like facing off against someone gets you better at the actual action, but setting yourself up so you and I can go against each other, I can do that in my, I could put a little piece of tape and make a line and practice my stance 10 times. And that's a great way to get yourself ready. Small things.
Yeah, right. That's just such a good way to improve your process and such good advice. Like I love how you I do it sometimes with like beginners start on the knees. I should do more eyes closed. Like I do that when we do some exit work, but that's another really, really good suggestion and some awesome tips on things you guys can do on your own by yourself when you're working through things, because the kids who just clamp the ball 100 times a night, like sure, you're getting better at clamping the ball 100 times a night or what you think should be your form. But without anyone to go against, you have no clue if you're practicing the right way or not.
Yeah. And it, again, is like with all these micro adjustments is great clampers are really easy to scout. I mean, you've played against great clamp. Yeah. You can figure out ways to be elite at that. Is like the face off again. All it is a ground ball. One of the best ways to become a great face-off guy is being the best ground ball guy on your team by far. It's like one of the first stats I look for is like when I scout guys in college is I take their face-off win, the number of wins, and I take how many ground balls they have and find how many times they pick up their own ground ball. Because if you can control your own ground ball, that is an elite guy. If you're like around like 55% picking up your own ground ball, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, right. And wing play is such a variable at the high school level. Like getting your own ground balls is a huge stat. And I'm really glad you talked about shooting, stick work, being a total midfielder, like all of our guys, and we made a really conscious effort about this lately, is like we are doing stick work, we're doing ground balls, and we're going to shoot like almost every time you come to our weekly stuff. And if you guys have time on your own, I'd rather you do that than face off, right?
Yeah.
Like you can get incrementally better every time you face off. You could get so much better. And like as a shooter, as a feeder, comfortability with the ball in your stick, the more touches you get, like that needs to be the root of all of your practice, especially when you're on your own. And you know, I learned this going to like one of the Powell camps when I was younger, growing up in the Syracuse area. Like you have to master the stick before you can be a good lacrosse player.
Yeah. So it's such a big, I mean, you're only clamping the ball for 1 second when you're on the field. So, I mean, think about it, right? It's like if you and I are on the field for 10 seconds of a face-off, if you're only clamping for 1% of that time, like, or 10% of that time, 1 second, like, is that really that big of a deal? You have to be able to pick up a ground ball and run away from pressure and double someone if you lose the clamp, or like cuff check someone and pick it. Like, there's so much more of lacrosse that you need to be way more elite at than just the clamp. So I agree 100%.
Two really good examples of that. Like I wasn't a great face-off guy. Like I grew up playing midfield, hooked face-offs, didn't know a lot about the technique when I got to Rutgers, and we would do like ground ball drills from the midfield line, like rolling it out to the face-off wings. And one of the ways I stood out as a freshman who was undersized, not super big, not super fast, was my ability to pick the ball up. And I like remember Coach Cromwell, who was our O coach at Rutgers, he's like a Rutgers legend. Like my first game that I actually like played pretty well, it might have been the second or third game of the season. He like said to me at the tailgate, he's like, "Man, you got a nose for the ball." Like he knew it, and like they prioritized just picking ground balls up, and that's how I kind of scrapped and clawed to get to 50. I think I was 52% as a freshman, and then this weekend, you know, we had a tough matchup with San Diego in the Firewolves. Obviously, I'm going against Baptiste, who's a really good face-off guy as well. I see it a lot of them through indoor and outdoor, but like my coach, you know, reminded me before the game, he's like, "Listen, like I need you to be playing great defense tonight," and like we didn't have as much success as I wanted in like the first quarter face-off wise. And like, I just kept in the back of my mind, like, as long as I'm playing good D, like the face-offs are going to come and we're going to win this game. And fortunately we ended up trending well in both things. So I was pumped with the result, but that's just another aspect that you got to always keep in mind. Like there's so much more to the game than just winning and losing face-offs.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can coaches who are listening structure practice to promote face-off, like development with their face-off guys? Obviously, you know, you and I are very much in the camp that the kids should be practicing like the rest of the players, whether they're on the scout team, they're playing D midi. You know, I go to Whip Snakes practice and Coach Staggs lets the best middies on the team just dodge me the entire time. They do 6-on-6. I'm trying to cover all these young guys with the long dodges out of the box.
They're trying to keep the offense feeling good about themselves, dodging the face-off guys.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's something I talked about at the convention for the college coaches this year is think about it in just terms of stats. Is think about how much time you spend on extra man and man down, and how many times you do that in a season versus how many face-offs you'll take, right? So you face off 400 times in a college season. So you have to practice that. You don't have to practice 400 times, but you have to practice that way more frequently than you do your extra man or your man down. It just happens more often. So I treat our face-off guys just like every other guy on the team. When we do stick work, they're in the stick work. When we do position work, I break that as my technique work. 15 to 20 minutes of technique work, getting you better at something. When they do 6-on-6, if there's enough guys that we don't need a scout look, or those guys are with me, like that is when we get our live on-camera film sessions, like or film work where we're filming live reps, we're breaking it down, we're helping guys through stuff. Maybe we'll do the number 1 versus the number 2 scout looks, but you treat it just as a normal practice where, you know, 6v6 is live. Okay, well, like that's face off live. Position work is technique. We're getting technique work. So you treat it just like that. And the one thing that I think is the best is doing 10v10, just in terms of like a full field face off to possession where, like I stat face offs is who plays offense first. If you win a face off, they run down the field and the faceoff guy throws the ball away, or he has a turnover, that's a loss. You lose. You didn't get the ball first. You didn't play offense first. So we practice all those scenarios, but just 10v10 face-off to possession 2 or 3 times a week, where we're getting our wings dialed in. Wings in college, in high school, no one wants to be on the wing. It's not cool, right? Like, we make it really cool. We make it a big deal that, we don't let anyone run on the wings. There's certain guys that only run on the wings, long stick and short stick. And we practice, hey, these are your routes. This is where you need to get to. You don't get that just going in the corner. Everyone talks about playing in the sandbox. You don't get that doing that. You need to practice that on the field with everyone, all eyes on, 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, right? Like, how many times have you guys been man up this year? Do you know?
I don't know, man up. We've been man down 50. We've caused 50 or had 15 penalties this year.
So you've been man down 15 times, and how many games have you guys played?
We're 11.
Right, 11 games. So if every penalty, I call it average 45 seconds, less than 10 minutes a game, right? And like,
It's nuts when you break it down like that. When you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I practice man down and EMO 15 minutes every single day.
Yes.
And then
sure, it's really important, right? Like, that could be 1 or 2 goals in a game. But how many faceoffs have you guys taken this season?
Yeah, close to 400. And it's also too, right, is that you can make that right up is, like in PLL and even indoors, if you pop one forward and you score a goal, like, was it worth all the faceoff reps that you take? Andrew McMeekin at Princeton had 10 points last year. So right away, he's 5 points shy of the, 2 hours of all the added time of EMO man down work that we did to score a couple goals. So like, it's just give and take. What's more important? What are you going to focus on the most?
Yeah. And one thing, we help out at a lot of college programs in Massachusetts, and like, we do wing play and team face-offs. And most of the time when I go, like, even if I'm popping over to UMass Boston, those guys have been awesome. Like, we worked with them for a few years now. Like, we'll do 3-on-3 around the circle, so we get a lot of wing reps in a shorter amount of time, just because, like, we're not there every day. And then we'll do face-off scrimmage, where it's a 30-second shot clock. If you lose the face-off, your team's at some sort of disadvantage, where we make the guy sub off, or he jumps out of the play, like, whatever it may be. It allows, like, the teams to play, us to practice early offense, early possession defense, like working on subbing, playing 6-on-5. Like, there's so much you can get out of those 10-on-10 face-off scrimmages. And I love that, like, short shot clock constraint, because that kind of amplifies all the scenarios, so everything just happens a little bit quicker. Last thing on the coaching front, what tips do you have for, like, coaches or players, like, in terms of watching film, studying, and just trying to improve that way?
Mm-hmm. You have to be a student of the game. I think one thing to do, the easiest thing to do, is go and look at who's the best and why they're the best, and find out those things, right? Is whether it's how guys set up in their stance, how light are they on their hands, where they exit or how they exit, their tenacity to certain things. I think being a really good student of the game is huge. And then too, is being able to take criticism or concerns about every little thing, right? Is like, when we talk to you guys, or we go do camps, is you and I might walk up to the same kid and say, not opposite things, but things that might be different or in a different way. And as a good student, watching film or just listening, is like, you have to be able to take that, manipulate what they're saying, and then add, a small part of each. Not exactly, because the way that you and I do things is not going to be the way that everyone else does things. But hey, this is what I see. This is what we're trying to get you to change or add to your game. And then being able to know yourself well enough to say, okay, I think I could do that this way, or I can add that to my game in that direction. So I think that's a really, really big part. But you got to be a lax rat. TD mentioned it, or you mentioned it on your other podcast, is go on face-off zone. It's literally every face-off broken down like a college player or college coach would want. Go watch the best guys be the best against the best, and be like, wow, he does this all the time. It must work for him. Let me try that. Or, when you look at like a kid like Wambach, and you're like, wow, his stance looks so different than everyone else's. Like, maybe I should try that. Why does that work for him? So I think being a really big student and asking more questions when you watch film can make you a better lacrosse player once you get on the field.
Yeah, and I think there's two. You and I are huge advocates for film. There's two, like, parts to watching it. Like, one is on-field, really quick snippets, and that's like more game-like, because you don't get to pull out the paper and the pen pad and be like what do I need to do to get better for
Yeah.
this next game, right? Like it has to be on the fly. So I think that helps out with like quick adjustments and a lot of your practice, like implementing that in the game. And then there's like the scouting part of doing exactly what you're saying, whether it's yourself or other people you're watching, like how can you add to your game or like best prepare for the upcoming matchup based on all the things that you see that he does well or not very well. Yeah. All right, now college lacrosse, our last segment. Differences, coaching, just like what do you think one really cool thing that you enjoyed a lot, and maybe one thing that you wish was better, like club all the way up to D1. You've kind of done it all, at least for smaller stints of time and some longer, but like what would be your takeaways from like club all the way up to D1?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is that, especially here at like, in Division One, is that just in terms of resources and coaches, right? Is like our guys are so fortunate that they have like a face-off specific coach that their job is to help them develop. Which is really hard, especially smaller schools, things like that. Like you don't always get that opportunity. And there's not like a ton of face-off coaches in college lacrosse, period. So that's definitely something in terms of just like the actual like development, being able to lean on you guys, face-off factory to like get guys better is always great. But having a coach that's like there every single day and watching every single rep with you is invaluable. I mean, it's like incredible. So that part's really, really neat. The biggest difference, I guess, is really just more so is that as you get higher up, the specialty becomes higher and higher, right? Is like you're able to do a lot more, I feel like, if you want in Division III, in terms of there's some guys that like are that stay on and play a ton. There is a little bit more like freelance in terms of how wings work, and if they don't have a face-off specific coach, is they're not watching every single wing route that team's taken and who's taking them, and if they clamped versus raked. So just being able to really dissect each position, each face-off is something that is really unique to Division I and the experience that the guys are able to experience here. So, but again, you can have that same experience in Division III. It's just understanding what you're stepping into. So,
yeah, pretty cool. I mean, it is wild to like think that you worked at all those different spaces, and it's just different work environment, different situation with like resources and access to the players, but pretty neat.
It's also timing too, right? Is like in Division III is you have way less time with the athletes, so it's more time. It's more time on your own. It's more time. You might have a chance to go to a development day if in the area versus like here is we're with the guys way more. They got lift in the morning. They have conditioning. They have practice. They got film. They got treatment. Like your day is just way more regimented. Where in Division III it can also be very busy, but there's way less time of actually being on the field with the guys that you're actually allowed.
Yeah, and in New England here, like we definitely see a lot of our D3 guys still during the season. D1 and D2 maybe not as much, but a lot of our kids, like all ranges of college, still try to come out and get some extra coaching. Like you said, not every school's got coaches coming to face off or have the luxury of like being able to bring guys in to help their students. And then you've worked at two pretty high academic schools. What do you think kids can do, like have high academic aspirations just to set themselves up for success, so that like, they're never schools are never crossing them off because of their grades or their preparation?
Yeah. I mean, it's always push yourself in all levels, right? It's like, it's if you can get the easy A, like go test yourself, go take the AP class, go work really hard in terms of, pushing yourself on all academic fronts. And then I also think something that's interesting too, is that you should find something you're really passionate about in terms of, even like community service, and be really passionate about it. Like be involved in stuff other than just lacrosse and school. It's something that it's just good for being a good person. But it also will go a long way. And that will definitely, our jobs as college coaches is to bring the best people to graduate, not always necessarily become a pro and, do all this. So it's like players represent the coaches in the program and there. So making sure that you're doing everything possible to be a good person, get involved in the community, take hard classes, teacher recommendations are always a big deal. Like you don't want your teacher saying something bit poor about you because, Johnny didn't show up to class 4 days a week because he had lacrosse practice, right? So be a good person and like have those strong relationships in the academic realms as well as the community. It's definitely something that will never get you crossed off of a list. At the end of the day, being a college lacrosse player is really hard. So everyone doesn't get the high academic or the opportunities that they're always looking for. But I will forever stand on the sword that, like you're falling the sword that, the schools that find you and that you decide to go to are the correct school. No, that is what usually happens, if not all the time.
Yeah. My piece of advice, like chiming in there, it would be like get a gritty job or a blue collar type job that you probably don't want to do after college. But like for me, I worked at the boating club in our town, hot summer days, mostly doing like yard work, manual labor, sitting out in the sun, rescuing people when the sailboats would crash. And I painted houses, right? Another thing, outside in the heat, like you can't always control what you're going to get with certain properties and trying to fix them up. And there's always things to uncover that, it's never exactly as it seems. You got to think on your toes and be resourceful and show up on time and be respectful and be professional. Like a lot of those little things working other jobs that maybe you don't want to do long term will really say a lot about your character and what you're willing to put up with and go through when you are in the recruiting process. I can tell you guys like Casey would look at that on your resume or your cover letter and be like, damn, like that's pretty cool. I respect that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, think about how many people there's only, if there's 4 face-off guys on each roster and, you're talking Division I, how many Division I schools there are, like, it's not a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids that want a very finite amount of spots or support in terms of like being recruited by certain schools. So you need to do things that make you stand out or things that make you, the definitive choice for that school.
No doubt. Predictions, college lacrosse down the stretch. I won't ask you to die. I know you still score peak all the D2, D3 games.
Oh, so, dude, I'm all over that. I know. Yeah. I know. I mean, I'll definitely speak at least the D3, considering we have some contentions in Division I, but just from coaching against them, but also too, they came in practice the other day, a few days back on their trip down to CNU. I think is the tough guys are doing some pretty cool things. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Is if you look at their face-off guys, just in terms of face-off guys right now as well. They've got 2 guys that have taken each over 150 face-offs that are both over 54%. So pretty impressive resume in terms of that. And no matter what, is winning 12 games in a season is pretty impressive. And, having the target on your back almost all year, if not all year, as the number 1 team, that's hard to do. So definitely give a shout out to those guys and hopefully see what those guys can do. D2, I honestly, is the school in Mercier has moved to Division I, so I definitely don't have as big of a understanding of it. But I know that Derek was with coaching with St. A's for a while, so saw that they had a couple big wins. I think over at Delphi last week, which is really cool and interesting. And then Division I, and right now it's a crapshoot. I think there's a lot of really good teams, a lot of great face-off guys in all of them, and we'll see down the stretch. So I'm excited. I mean, it's really cool to be competing at that level, but also 2 is just seeing how, one is seeing how our guys are all of a sudden, now they're in college, which is crazy. And just following their careers has been really, really fun. But I'm excited to see how this year shakes out. I think it's going to be a really fun end of the season tournament play and then NCAA national tournament. So it'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I know you got a horse in the race, so we'll stay away from the Ivy League, but who are kind of like your sleeper picks to make a run or like a little Cinderella push come tournament time?
I mean, it's hard to say Cinderella, but I mean,
maybe not Cinderella.
The thing that I think, just from playing against them is Brady Wambach's awesome. The kid can exit really well. He's super tough on the ground balls. When you talk about how you can work around a great face-off guy, is he finds a lot of answers, which is really, really impressive. So UNC was really fun. The goalie that we had last year here at Princeton is there now. So was, friendly rivalry, which is always fun. But I think really, in terms of the middle of the field, a guy like Brady's awesome. UNC's awesome. Anyone in the top 20, I mean, those teams are all competing against each other all the time. And even those last ins are making huge pushes towards the end of the year. So it'll be, just from coaching him and knowing him a little bit, Brady, I'm super stoked that Brady's doing so well. But we'll see. I mean, that's a team that we could probably see again. So who knows?
Yeah, UNC is definitely dangerous. They had a good week and win this weekend. Nice defensive battle with Duke. We got to watch some of that game in the locker room. Like you said, all the teams in the top 20, I feel like, have been shuffling in and out, 10 through 20. I obviously am biased and love Rutgers, but
Well, I was just about to say, we haven't talked about that. Two D3 guys running the table.
I know two of our Massachusetts boys, Ethan Bardard and Matt Pallotta, are doing great down there. Matt's top 10 almost. He had another strong game this weekend against Michigan. Unfortunately, they didn't get the win. They have a huge one this weekend against Penn State. I watch a lot of Big Ten lacrosse. I think most of those face-off units are really strong. Like, those battles have been awesome ones. Definitely some good clips to watch on face-off zone. I mean, really, the Big Ten has had pretty much, Hopkins might drop out this week, and I think Rutgers may as well, but all those teams have flirted with top 20, beating each other up a little bit. I don't think anybody's undefeated anymore. Strong face-off play. The ACC has been pretty fun to watch. A lot of high-end talent on those teams and really good face-off battles too. Like Syracuse, Cornell this weekend, I felt like was a treat face-off-wise. Pretty much a 50-50 split between Mullen and Cascadden, who I think are two of the best guys in college. I like their games a lot. They both add to the scoring column too and can play. One of my boys from upstate New York has been crushing it this year, Logan Bannock at Siena. If they, make a push.
SIENA, baby.
Yeah, Casey went to Siena, so I'm sure he's a fan. But if they make a push in conference play, I'd love to see who he gets to square up with in the first round. And I think the top 20 for faceoff guys, there's 5 to 6 guys above 63%, who I think are have cemented themselves a little bit above the pack. But I think really 1 through 20, those first round tournament games are going to be sick. Matchups. So I'm really excited for not only conference tournaments, but the NCAA tournament's going to be a treat for face-off fans.
The best part is just that even outside the face-off is that everyone can beat everyone.
Yes.
And that's the coolest part is, it is so competitive even outside of the face-off that, teams that haven't been over 50% there's teams that aren't over 50, we're not over 50% right now in the season that are in the top 20, and there's teams that are, 70% in the top 20. There's it's a huge range in terms of just face-off numbers. So that's the cool part is there's so much dictated on getting possession, and possession is such a big part of it. But at the end of the day is it's a one aspect of a huge game, right? So that's a cool part.
Yeah, what do you think as a college coach? How and I think it's pretty cool that you can't take the next face off after a violation. Are you seeing a lot more guys get opportunity, meaningful minutes, maybe a chance, and then the team ends up sticking with them because of that rule?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool change up. I mean, just as anyone everyone talks about things that change is, our position's always under attack in terms of changing rules. So having something that was pretty consistent to last year was nice, in terms of just being able to be hey, this is what you can expect. This is how things go. But I think that the change up of having the second, that guy not being able to take the face off is awesome. And it gets more guys involved. It makes it so that, if your number 2 face off guy goes in and smacks it, it's holy crap. Should he take the next one too? Right?
Yeah, right.
So it makes it you can go in and compete. And I think that the worry that a second face-off guy would go in and then just basically time the whistle and try to jump it, I think that was kind of disbanded, because now if you're the one and you violate and your 2 goes in and violates, you're down 2 possessions already, and then the next face-off you're cold, and that could be 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes that you're not in. So it's just a lot of time not to to guess and give up a face-off. So I think that it eliminated that. And now it's way more so of hey, this is a big face-off. The second face-off guy's a big face-off win.
Huge. I know. I think it's been cool. I'm always stat peeking and noticing that teams are playing 2, sometimes even 3 guys. Way more when you and I were in college 10 years ago, both of us came from the school, you're going every time unless you can't, no matter what, right?
I joke around with all the stat book stuff, but it's both of us set records at our schools for taking the most face-offs, and it wasn't because there wasn't anyone else. It was because they were just oh no, you're here, you take them all.
Yeah, that's right. That's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, like look at it. Tufts, 2 guys over 150 faceoffs. That is like crazy. Teams having 2 faceoff guys with over 100 period is nuts. So it's
Nuts.
like really different.
Yeah. And then overtime, bonus question. What do you got for me that you think can help? Any thought provoking questions? I know we talked last week on some technique stuff, so maybe it's not that. What do you think I can say based on our conversation to help add some more value for our listeners?
In terms of faceoff stuff,
Anything.
I mean, I think asking the book stuff was awesome. The leadership stuff. I guess this is what do you do personally to get out of a rut when you're down 3 faceoffs or you're just like trying to figure yourself out? So, I mean, you see guys, you said, put their head down, they start pouting and stuff, but like everyone has a different trigger. Like, what is your out of the rut? Hey, I need to do this, this, and this to get myself back.
Yeah, I wasn't always good at doing stuff like this, and I think as I've gotten older, more mature, learned from a lot of really smart people, had access to resources. Like we use, Doc Wally with the Firewolves as our mindset coach, and like he's been great. And like I think one thing he does a really good job of is like storytelling. And if you guys have ever done sessions with him, I know we offered it through Face Off Factory at one point in time. But like just from like thinking back on times that I had battled through adversity and like knowing I can do it, he's told the stories about like how some hockey teams he's worked with have like written reload like on the water bottles or on the bench, and like every time you come off, just like resetting, knowing that it doesn't carry forward, and like knowing there's ebbs and flows to the game where you're gonna have some good streaks, some bad streaks, but like it's always about getting like above where your mean is and trying to maximize your potential. And like this weekend was a perfect example. Like we didn't, I think the guy I went against had 1 loose ball the entire game, but like, we started the game like probably losing 8 of the first 9 or 10 face-offs, and we ended up like closer to 50-50. And like that's just a testament to sticking with the process, doing what you do, trying to make some adjustments, not getting emotional. But I think like what it really has come down to for me, like when I do struggle and like the voice in my head starts getting negative, is being like, F you, like stay out. Like I know I can do this. I have done this. I battled through much tougher stuff than just losing a couple face-offs. Like let's freaking go. Next one. Put the gloves on. Let's fight.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a perfect way to. I mean, I know that especially too is coming back from you coming back from injury and stuff too is like there's like times that it's like, oh my gosh, this is pretty dark. So being able to hit the reset button, I think, is something that we talk about with our guys all the time. Is like some guys put like a button on their, they tape a button on their wrist and they press the button when they mess up. Or like my thing, my college coach was like, oh, drop the bricks, and he would take my stick if I was being a pest or just like down. He would take my stick during games, practice, whatever, and he would throw it down by the end of the bench. And he was like, you're allowed to be mad at yourself until you go pick it up. And then once you pick it up, you have to hit the reset button and you're back to neutral. And it was like the loneliest, most pissed off walk to the end of the bench to go get my stick. And then you sit back and you're like, all right, I'm here. I'm present. Like, all right, what do I need to do next? Which I think is just like cool triggers. And guys deal with this all the time. I mean, again, talk about being the best loser to become the best winner is you have to learn how to be really good at that part. And it's a part that doesn't get taught. You have to find it self-motivated or, self-learned or taught. So that's something that you have to like go back and really dig deep to see like how your process is different than mine and how it's going to help me best. So
yeah, and we had 2 things. Like we had a dude on our team last year, Anthony Jokum, in like the second and fourth quarters in NLL when the teams are like pushing pace and you got the long change and like on defense you're sprinting out, sprinting back, like
dragging,
playing, dude. Yeah, and he's always like people start like getting tired and you'd be like screaming on the bench. He's like, tell your body to F off. You're not tired. And like, although it's funny, like I think about it the same way, like face-offs, like tell yourself to F off. Like you're going to win the next one. And like Doc Wally told us this one thing I'll leave you guys with about like the stone cutter and how like they never know when they're going to like actually break this monster stone, but they're hitting it with the same intensity on like the first blow as they are the 100th blow, not having any idea if it's going to take another 500 or another 2 whacks to cut that stone and like really break through. And like we talk about it in the locker room and our coach resonates with it. And I think that's a great piece of advice. Like you keep doing your best, you're going to break through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's small chips, right? Every single day. It's like the same thing we always talk about. It's 1% better in whatever you're doing. But then two is like sticking to it. It can't be 1% and then take 5% off because of the weekend.
Yeah. Well, that's all we got for you guys. This is our first hour-long episode, TD and Coach Marino, but we're a little bit shorter. I think we gave the fans an awesome listen today. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Obviously, if there's things you want to hear about in the future or next time we have Casey on, things that we missed, drop it in the comments. Make sure you like this, subscribe on YouTube. We're going to be tossing this stuff up on a bunch of other avenues like Apple Music, Spotify. We'd love for you guys to follow along every single week when we have a new guest on. So Casey, I want to say thank you. We appreciate it. I hope everybody got some real value out of this one. This was a cool one for me. I thought we dove into a lot of great subjects, and I'm pumped to see you on the summer circuit in a few months.
Yeah, appreciate it having me on. I'm excited to see you soon.
All right, later, pal. Hey guys, this is Coach Nardella. My tip of the week, and not a lot of guys do this, is to make sure at practice, whether it's before or after, you are practicing going against a long pull. It is a situation you will surely see, especially if you do well in a lot of your games. You got to be prepared for it because it's much different in terms of protecting the ball. But make sure you get one of your boys out before or after practice and take some live reps against a long pole who's trying to take the ball away from you.